Yeah. The sharing is caring.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our B-Sides. B-Sides. Holy crap, wrong conference. Welcome to our GrrCON talk. Today we have Matt Johnson about to talk about his breach stains. You're welcome.
Thank you, Kyle. That sounded weird. All right. Hi, everybody. I hope I don't put you all to sleep. Hi, Steve. What's up? Represent all Steves. All right, so I'm going to talk about an experience that I had several years ago at an employer where we actually had an intrusion happen, and what happened, kind of a high-level story, where what I learned and what I learned in my career going forward to hopefully make me a better practitioner. So. All right, and we're not moving. Next slide. Wow, I can't PowerPoint today. Yeah? Let's see, let's try this again. I can't PowerPoint today? Yeah, I can't PowerPoint. All right, so let's see. That'll be weird. All right. As I get this working, so I'm a Windows guy in the cybersecurity department. I cyber well with a lot of people. More cyber, lots of cyber. It's good cyber. When your boss is in the room, you can make him shake his head. It's awesome. And my wife, she knows. I'm the founder of PoshSec. It's a Windows, it's PowerShell module and framework to help you do Windows security a little bit better. I have a great team working with me on this. More about that later. I have a podcast, which we are kind of on hiatus because I have slow internet where I live right now, so we'll be getting back to that. It's called Leveled Up. I'm a MySec member, organizer, going to start a new chapter of MySec here. One of the B-Sides Detroit and Converge organizers, and I have a beautiful, wonderful wife and a kid that keep me away from a computer a lot. Hi. No. Well, you want to on stage? Let's do this. Oh. All right. What? There's no cyber. You want a cyber? Let's do it. Come on. Do you know how to PowerPoint? Because my PowerPoint's not working. Yeah, I know. This stinks. We're gonna... No. Oh! He's following you around. He deserves it. Anyways. So just a warning. This has nothing to do with my current employer. All the thoughts are mine, because if the people I work for had my thoughts, we'd be in a lot of trouble. So take it as what you want. Let me click to the next slide. This is going to be really weird, but whatever. So here's what we're going to talk about. The story that of what I've lived through, where I've learned, some clothing thoughts, a lot of jokes about egg drop, and we'll go from there. I have a feeling I'm going to get hit a lot. So, man, this is going to stink. All right. So, basically, a couple years ago, I was working for a company in Michigan, and I was getting ready to go to a Christmas party, company Christmas party. And it was a cold winter day, and it was in the middle of winter, and I was getting ready to go, and truth be told, I hate Christmas parties, like completely hate them. You kind of feel like you have to like be nice and stuff, and I don't want to fake it. So I was sitting there at home, and my boss calls and says, "Hey, how's it going?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm going to totally see you in a couple hours. Why are you calling?" He's like, "Well, man, that sucked." So he's like, "Hey, so we have a problem. I got a call, we've been hacked. I'm like, oh, great. I'm like, good joke, I'll see you in a couple hours. You're like, no, really, we got a call. And I'm like, who called? And he's like, oh, we got a call from a partner saying that we got breached. I'm like, oh, that's fantastic. On the day of the Christmas party. And so, of course, the first thought I was like, oh shit, we've been hacked. Like, what's going on? This kind of sucks. Well, actually, that. And then I went to, hey, I don't have to go to the Christmas party. So it was like the worst thing that you could possibly happen, then no Christmas party. So it was kind of like a bag of mixed tricks. And then I had another thought, which was probably the more realistic one that a lot of people have when you're going to get a call that you got hacked. I'm like, oh shit, shit's going down. We're in trouble. And knowing how our network was, this was going to be interesting. So we decided to spring into action. And I drove into work. I told the wife, I'm like, hey, keep on getting ready, because you know how my wife takes forever to get ready. So I'm like, I got a good 4 or 5 hours before she's ready to go. And so I'm like, all right. So we spring into action. Dude, really? You guys still can't hit me? Damn, you guys suck. Good thing you run a good conference, because you're not going to be a pitcher. You ready? All right. So we make the drive, and I get there, and we start doing our work, right? You know, everyone in here is trained to respond to an incident, right? Because you know that day we're gonna go in and we're gonna. Wow. So we're all ready for this to happen. So we started doing a few things, and we were listening to the partner on the other end of the phone, which is kind of an important partner with us, and like they're like, hey, let's shut off the internet. So we shut off the internet. God, this is worse than my talk. So we started reviewing all the information that our partners has given us, and wow. And basically it was, here's what we are seeing, here's where we're going, all this stuff. And we sat there for a couple of minutes like, oh shit, this is actually bigger than we thought. This is not cool. You know, hey, we might lose our jobs, things. But then I made a wonderful phone call. I called my wife and said, hey, we're not going to the Christmas party. She's like, good, because I didn't get ready. I'm going to Kohl's. I'm like, oh shit. So this is getting bad. So we decide, hey, we need to collect all the PCs. So my boss took the bullet and went to the Christmas party after we called all the people that we knew were infected via the partner's information. And he collected the PCs, which was cool because I didn't have to go in. And he's like, well, you need to go home and start figuring out what we're going to do the next day. Because, you know, we were breached. And we were like, hey, let's just go home and go to bed. So I went home and went to bed. And it was probably not the easiest sleep that I've had in a long time, but it didn't sink in yet. It was like, oh, well, you know, just another day at the office. That's, you know, just something normal. So I woke up the next morning and I was like, oh shit, today's not going to be good, because I know I had the PCs in, the partner was coming in to start talking to us, giving us all the information, looking at all the stuff that we had to do, and that was not a fun drive into work. So here's your cat slide, Beachy. We started reviewing logs and looking through things, but the interesting part is we didn't know that we were hacked at all. Like it was like for a long time that we were actually breached, and we didn't know. So it was like, oh, let's start reviewing the logs. But truth be told, we were kind of in the logs already and did not know that this was happening. So we then got some more phone calls. We got phone calls from the partners, we got phone calls from end users, we got phone calls from people at the executive level We got phone calls from our parent company. We got phone calls from a ton of people. And not all of them were happy. My wife was getting upset because I was still at work and it was a Sunday morning and, you know, apparently you need 2 people to go to Kohl's and it just was not fun. So, and then it just kept on getting worse. We found more and more things that were going wrong. Found them in more places. We started looking at some of the things that they were telling us to look at because they had the partner that knew that this was going on had server names and all this stuff, and it was like we started looking like, oh look, there is an admin on this box that shouldn't be there, and a bunch of stuff. So then we started thinking, and we're like, what are we gonna do? So of course we're like, let's lock it down because there was like to say that there was security would be really nice. We listened more to the users and the business to how much security we would have, not following best practices or actually, you know, some wisdom to do that. So we started looking at locking things down, and then the end of the day came because, you know, 13, 14 hours at work was not fun. I was like, well, I need to go get some sleep because I'm not good sleep deprived. And we just kept on finding more and more stuff that's out there. It was bad. And we learned some things like we didn't have a SIM, so any log searching was by hand with grep or not with PowerShell. I love PowerShell, but select string is horrible for searching logs. So we're just going through it manually in the same way we were doing before, and we were finding little things, but we weren't finding everything. And then we realized, which we may have already known before, we had no clue at all what was happening on our network. We found machines that we didn't know that were stood up by people. It was like a software company, so people had free reign to do anything. If they got the budget to buy a machine, they bought a machine and put it on. It was like there was no control over that. And we realized we were in trouble because tomorrow was Monday. And so I went home, had a good night's sleep, just because I was tired. And then I come into work the next morning. And I was the first one there. I got there at like 7:30 in the morning, and up runs the sales guy's like, oh my God, the internet is broken. I'm like, dude, it's 7:30. What do you care about the internet? He goes, oh, I got to check my fantasy football scores from the night before. I'm like, seriously? This is shit's on fire. And I'm like, hey, we're down because, you know, we kind of got breached. You know, we got hacked. And they're like, what? We got hacked? So then he's like, I need to call all my contacts and all this stuff. I was like, whoa, crap. And then people just come more and more coming in. Found out my boss was kind of smart and that he didn't come in till later that morning knowing that I was handling that. So, you know, if this happens and you know that your business partners or your end users or executives are coming in, hey, how about you bring more people that were responding to this? Because myself and like 80 people was not fun. And then the executives walked in, and of course they're in the fantasy football league too, and they start yelling at us, turn the internet back on. And I went to a conference room, they're like, it can't be this bad. No, my internet's still working, my computer, my files are still there, so let's turn the internet back on. And it was like, okay, and we're like, well, we're not going to because we shouldn't. He goes, your job or the internet? So we turned the internet back on because, you know, I don't know. I was kind of crazy at that point because hindsight, I probably should have said, fine, you deal with this. I'm gonna leave. So then our business partners showed up and they started giving recommendations. If you haven't figured out who the business partner yet is, it's the FBI and the government. I mean, because we were kind of we were under their sight for some stuff that we were working on, but it was. They had more view into our stuff, and we're actually watching it for a while. So they came in, and they're like, hey, how's it going? What's going on? Let's start looking through stuff. And they started making recommendations. Well, so some of those recommendations on the screen, you kind of laugh at that, you know, these weren't probably already in place. So there was no web filtering. If you wanted to browse porn in the middle of the day at work, and your computer was not facing the door, you probably could do it because... Yeah, I know. Oh, man, well, who doesn't want to work at a place like that? And then set up some log management because all of our files were flat files on firewalls or Windows logs on various boxes or files on some Linux servers or whatever. There was no central management stuff. They were like, how about we set this up? And we're like, oh, okay, cool, yeah. And then change some Windows settings. So, hey, let's turn the Windows firewall back on, and let's do some other stuff. And this last one, the update resume, one of them did actually tell me you might want to update your resume because this is going to get bad. I'm like, oh, yay. So I was like, I don't know. Maybe I will, maybe I didn't. I did, in the midst of things, update my resume just in case. So then management comes in after their morning round of golf. After they yelled at me they couldn't get on the internet, they all left to go golfing because they couldn't work. And they said, okay, so what's going on? And we're like, okay, so we want to turn these things on the computers. We want to do some log management. There's a whole list of stuff that we want to do. And they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. The culture here is to let people do what they need to do. You can't lock them down at all. And you're like, oh, come on, seriously? Like, your data's leaving. Like, it's leaving, quicker than I do at the end of the day. I mean, seriously. And they're like, oh no, but productivity will fail. And I'm like, you got to do this. Prove it. Prove that if we don't do anything, it's going to continue to happen. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So I don't know. I stayed there and tried to prove it, and we would find more things. And when I tried to prove it, we found more and more things. Like your executive likes to click things. Just saying, if you're doing phishing campaigns, I guess send them to your executives because, well-placed phishing attacks work wonderful. And so try it. I mean, it worked in our case. Hey, let's click this link about a new deal. It only takes a couple seconds to figure out what you want and send it. So that's basically what we found was that an email, a spear phishing email, was sent to like 5 or 6 people, and they all clicked on it, from the executive level all the way to sales guy level. And I'm like, oh, well, okay, that's cool. So then you find out that, hey, all those things that you sit in these other red team talks, and you're like, hey, I sent a malicious PDF, and they click on it and it says, oh, there's an error with the PDF, close it, and it actually drops a shell on your workstation. Well, this actually works. Like, legitimately, not on red team, but like, by other people. And it happens, and it worked shockingly well. So some of the other things that we found out that, oh, hey, so some of our junior admins are logging onto these workstations with admin credentials, and oh, hey, there's all their, we can start grabbing tokens and do the golden ticket stuff. It just, all those things, you sit in all these other talks, all happen. And all happen very well, and very fast, and very quietly. So we kept on finding a whole lot of different things. And so from this, I learned a whole bunch of stuff. This is not the complete story, because I'd probably get in a lot of trouble if I gave the whole entire story. But overall, that is the beginning of what I learned from the breach. And for probably 6-7 months, this was the worst job I ever had. And it became actually one of the worst jobs I ever had, but overall for these 6 months, it was bad. And you come in and you ever come in and just know you're going to get beaten every day at work? That's what it's like, because, yeah, I know you do, Kyle, every day. It's Jim's fault. So you end up, you learn a lot of things, and you learn a lot of things that actually help you further in your career. And I think some of this actually has made me become a better InfoSec practitioner. So documentation, and I'm sure you guys all heard a rant about documentation before, but seriously? So you're on 14, 15 hours of a breach, and you're sitting there and you're trying to figure things out, and you have no documentation of how things work, or how things are set up, or what the layout of your network is, or where logs go, or any of this stuff. You're just trying to remember, or that person's on vacation, or they have a kid's doctor's appointment, and you're trying to get this information. It's horrible. Documentation is no longer just an option. It's a must-have. I mean, where I currently work, I'm held to a higher standard to have documentation for this stuff. Yeah, rock on. And you know what? I hate doing it. I've told them many times I hate doing it. But I do it because, you know what? The one day that I'm, at GrrCON and something happens and someone else is dealing with my stuff, they need to be able to do this. But understanding your network is also important. Knowing where your traffic flows are, where data is stored, all this stuff. You are not going to throw another ball at me, dude. Good. Well, we all know that. But also, have you reviewed your documentation? What's up? What's up? What's up? You couldn't do that? Oh, hey. And she can throw. That's why you hired her. But have you read your documentation? So I know that, you may be responsible for one part of your entire corporation stuff, but all the stuff that you integrate with, have you looked at, your Active Directory documentation if you look over here and rely on it? Do you understand what your disaster process would be from the time that you're working on the stuff to the time that you actually have the incident? Like, how do you understand how Active Directory integrates? Or how do you understand what your system uses from a firewall standpoint? Do you understand that? Even if it's not yours, I would say, especially during this breach, but afterwards, and as I've done like just some exercises in my head on where this all goes, do you understand that? So, something else. I know we all love SharePoint. I mean, raw SharePoint or Drupal or WordPress or whatever you store your documentation on, but having a hard copy of this is probably one of the most brilliant things. The documentation that I have for the stuff that I own, I actually have hard copy documentation, because what happens when that SharePoint site goes down, or your Drupal instance goes down, or the SQL database that's hosting it is down because there's an incident, or the team doesn't know how to manage their stuff? How do you get that stuff in the middle of an incident? You can't. So having actual hard copies of this somewhere actually will make your life so much better. And then you can highlight, you can write, you can always replace the paper in there. Logs. So if you're not using a SIM or some way to, how about Splunk? Everyone a Splunk fan? I am. It needs to be centrally managed. You need to be able to get this information quickly, because if you're not able to pull this information quickly, this makes things so much worse. Do you know what type of log file formats you have on your network? We had a firewall that had flat file text logs. Do we know what that was? No. I spent more time trying to figure out how to parse these logs than I did actually looking at data, because I didn't understand the format, what type of logs, where to get the logs, any of that stuff. And I was in this all day long. So do you just use the system, or do you understand the system? And logs is a key part of that. Also, having a system capable of analyzing logs. So if you're crazy and decide, let's not do a SIM, and you're pulling them all these files to one location, is your system able to do that? What if you had an 18 gig log file? Yeah, I've seen it. Can you suck that all into memory so that you can actually read from it? Probably not. But automate. So SIM, PowerShell, Python, I don't care, Bash, whatever you need to use to automate all this stuff, you need to do it, because by hand sucks. Like that's, it's cool. Like you say, yeah, I got, I can grep like a boss, but really, yeah, good for you. And people can flip fries in a basket like a boss too. I mean, it's not really that cool, and it is something simple. So I'm just walking a dangerous line here with my wife in the room to talk about communication. So I know that in the workplace, not everyone likes each other. You may think the person's not as smart as you. You may not think the person's as smart as you. You may not speak the same language. Heck, you may be on a different continent. And you may have severe hatred for these people. But in an incident, if you can't communicate with people openly and thoroughly, this is a problem. I struggle from this. I sometimes think that people are stupid and don't want to listen to them, but I need to. And I learned this, and you need to understand that, especially in industry, you need to drop this whole I hate them and just get the job done, because that's what you're paid for. Another thing, your users don't want to hear they've been hacked, because that's like hearing it on Channel 7 News. They call their wife, they call the news, it gets bad. So you use fluffy words like, hey, the network's down for maintenance, and then let the executives communicate that there's a breach. I got into trouble by saying, yeah, we've been hacked, and then they're like, oh my God, we've been hacked. It's like, not cool. Communicate with your management, even if you think they're total doofuses because they go out and go golfing in the middle of the day instead of sit there and attend a meeting with your business partners from the government to say, you've been hacked. You might want to do this. You need to, that elevator pitch thing, so stop at the elevator pitch and leave it alone. Don't, oversell what you're trying to do when you see them for 2 seconds, because if all you do is ramble to them, like I do, they won't listen to you in the middle of a breach, right? No comment. So, wrong one. Sorry. Slide fail. PowerPoint fail. What? What? I do, don't I? I look like I did forensic sexy, right? All right, there we go. So, dealing with law enforcement. Okay. So, Jason Street did a good talk yesterday morning about, hey, let's hug all the police officers. And I'm totally down with that. But are we really hugging police officers? Because I know that a lot of us may have those preconceived notions of how police officers are or law enforcement is. And, I may or may not share some of those views. But during an incident, if they're in your building, don't be a dick to them. Like, seriously? If you're a dick to them, they're not going to help you. They don't help you a lot anyways because, they keep all the information themselves. But don't be a dick, because they do help you. The one dude that I was working with, he's like, oh yeah, here's all the stuff I used to go through logs, and handed me literally almost all their scripts that they go through logs for all the system that we have. Take good notes, because once you're done with them or they're done with you, they're never coming back. So if you learn a new trick, or you have some piece of information, or you're responsible reporting above you, you need to take good notes, because you're not going to be able to call and be like, hey, buddy, you remember that meeting 2 Thursdays ago? What did you say was wrong with my logs? So you need to do that. But also be honest with them. And I'm not saying, lose your job by saying, hey, this place sucks because I'm trying to implement stuff and the management won't let me. No. Tell them, I don't know the log format. I don't know. Or this is over here. This is not the time to put up the wall and say, well, you're a police officer, screw off. That's not the time. And like I said, don't expect to hear back from them. I've seen them at conferences before, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? And they're like, who are you? And I'm like, hey, remember this? Yeah, but who are you? They don't care who you are. Like, you're really another thing, unless you're like hot potatoes. So, management. So, like I said, if you just ramble on, you're like, oh my God, Heartbleed is so bad. When you're talking to the CIO or CEO, and they're going to be like, well, oh, hey, how do you fix it? They're going to want different things than, the doom and gloom. So make sure that management kind of knows who you are, but you don't, talk their head off. You want to be able to actually come to them with, hey, we've been breached. This is our plan, kind of work with it. Hopefully some of you guys have awesome management like I do, who have that relationship with people above you and are able to do that. But if they don't respect you before this incident, if you get hacked, they don't really respect you afterwards. They're just like, well, with checkbox, we have someone in that spot. If they keep you, they don't care. If they don't like you now, they don't like you before. But be honest and only give them information. Do you think they sit in boardrooms or executive meetings and then they're like, okay, Active Directory is configured like this and this setting is clicked? No, they wanted to go, oh, hey, you have Active Directory working? Great. Just give them enough information to keep them aware so that they can handle their stuff, but don't get bogged in the details with them. I did that. That was horrible. And I learned a lot from that. So I have to do this slide. Where do we go from here? what do we do going forward? I don't know how many of you get this reference, but it's horrible, just a horrible joke. Where do we go from here? Because I've lived through it. What do you guys all need to do? What do you need to take back? Why is this guy standing up here talking about a horrible day, a couple months at work? So it's more of a call to call to arms. Why? The red team stuff's awesome. If you do that, I'm in awe of you guys. I love learning from you guys. But those of us on the defensive side, what we do is not sexy. I mean, sim, if people manage a sim, they might be a little sexy. But overall, you need to focus on what is needed, what to level up again, incremental improvements even. Just start chipping away at the stuff you know is bad, or wrong, or misconfigured, or do the little stuff and then work on the big stuff. We need to actually go back to basics to go forward and protect yourself going forward. Also, learn to communicate with the business, whether it's taking a business class at a community college or listening to a social engineering talk, because that's pretty much what we have to do anyways. You need to learn to communicate with users or management or the board, business partners, whoever you're responsible to. Make sure you learn how to communicate with them. They don't talk exploits and O-days, they talk dollars and cents. So learn to take care of that. And again, take care of the small things. Log management, valid settings on your boxes, things like that. Don't just go, oh, well, it is what it is because, that's I can't get this done. Fix the small things. That's something that I do on a daily basis. If I see something small, I'm going to go fix it because it needs to be fixed. Like I said, go back to basics. When's the last time you really understood how something that you run or operate works? It's been a while. Focus less on the certs. There's been tons of cert rants, pro and for. Hey, I got 100 certifications, whatever. Can you really do the stuff behind that? I read a blog post the other day that said most of the certs are 5 to 7 months old by the time you actually take them. So it's not really even current technology, especially with the way that some places iterate over their software. So focus on the stuff behind it. Do you do what you do really well, or do you just do it mediocre? You need to understand all this stuff. Join a local community. I'm a MySec guy. There's BurbSec in Chicago. There's CleveSec in Cleveland. There are communities everywhere. And you don't have to stand up on stage like this. You can actually go and have conversations. I've had more conversations about random obscure topics, but then I come back to my day job and I'm like, I can apply that to this. So go to the local community, understand them, embrace, talk to people, just spend the time. Help out at conferences. I know, you see these yellow guys and the red guys running around here. Help out. This is a wonderful way to do this. A couple years ago, I first helped out at the second B-Sides Detroit. And I said, hey, I want to be the speaker wrangler. So I actually got to meet people like Dave Kennedy and all these people you see up here on stage. They're actually cool guys. But because I helped out, I now have connections out here. Come up and talk to people who are working here, because you may end up, your career may be changed by a conversation before someone starts and gives a presentation. Or just help out, because I know I help run B-Sides Detroit and Converge. Sometimes I'm like scrambling for volunteers. But you know what volunteers get? Usually free access to this ticket. There are 4 yellow shirts in here. Yeah, they're listening to this talk. Sorry for you guys, but overall, they're here. They get to hear this stuff. They get to sit in Dave Kennedy's talk or Mark Stanislav's talk or any of these people and actually get this stuff for free. Like for free. And you got to work, sometime during the day. It's kind of brilliant in the way that this kind of works. So please help out your local community. So do you update your resume or not? How long, anyone out here have not looked at their resume in 6 months? Over than 6 months? Yeah, okay. So, really? My bosses may not like this, but they've already heard this line before. My resume is updated as the last project that I worked on. Because you know what? One incident, you're out the door. while you're sitting there at home crying in your wife's arms or your significant other's arms and saying, oh my God, I just lost my job because like all the SQL data got breached and all this stuff, it's hard to type while you're crying. I mean, seriously. So you need to update it. But also other places ask for this. Like, hey, maybe you want to go get a master's. I looked at a master's program the other day that wanted your resume because they needed they needed experience on you. Or you need to make sure that this is up to date. What you do with your career is up to you. I try to level up my career everywhere I'm at. I want to feel like I'm providing a value to people, but you can't really, like, if you hate your job and you're stuck there, hey, a quick resume update really goes a long way. But really update it all the time, because you may look at your resume, hey, like, you know what, 8 years ago, I knew how DNS works, but now I really don't. Maybe I need to go refresh that skill. Because when they look at your resume and they say, 8 years ago, I was a DNS admin, and they go and you're sitting in an interview and they're like, let's talk about DNS. You're like, a record? It's kind of, you may not know. So please, just think about it, and it's a good way to overall look at your career. So I have a couple closing thoughts and then a couple extra slides, and then we can take questions. So overall, I may have made some jokes about this, and if you want more information, you can talk to me. I can give you what I can if you want more information, but never again do I want to be on the receiving end of a phone call that we've been breached. I'd kind of like to be notified by email while I keep on doing my work, because this was not a cool time. You think you're going to lose your job? I mean, seriously, I feel for the people at Target, Home Depot, Kmart, all these people who are just, hey, there's big news that get hacked. They're going to go home and their grandma's going to call them and say, hey, don't you do some computer thingy at Kmart? And you're like, yeah. So they got, my credit card's gone, and you're the dude who didn't do all the good stuff to make the data secure. That's a weird conversation. So, and luckily my father worked for the parent company, so I got voted to go tell my dad that this all happened. Yeah, that Christmas was awkward that year. I'll never know enough. You will see me in pretty much any of these talks. Red Team talks, I love watching to see how you guys are all breaking stuff, because how am I going to defend it if I don't understand what you're doing to break? What's your vector for getting in? How do I secure this? How do I understand this? So on both sides, I'm never going to know enough. I like to dabble in a lot of stuff. I'm a PowerShell guy, but I can write Ruby. Because I wanted to learn how to add stuff to Metasploit that I'll probably never commit anywhere but in my own little bubble. But I'll never learn enough. Keep on learning. Keep on driving this forward. The back to basic stuff, all this stuff was done by simple techniques that most likely any of you are probably done in your lab playing around. Hey, let's create a malicious PDF and see if my wife can click on it, kind of thing. It's all simple stuff. And overcomplicating all this stuff really hurts you, not the bad guys. It's you that you have an issue with if you go beyond the simple stuff and say, well, we got to do interesting things. So I got 2 plugs, and I'll take questions if you want. So if you are in the Jackson area or Lansing or Battle Creek or Ann Arbor or whatever south of Jackson, no clue, I'm from Detroit, but moving over this way. We will be doing MySec Jackson starting in January. Myself and Kyle down here. We will be holding meetings on, I think, the second Tuesday of the month, I think is what it is. At about 7 o'clock in downtown Jackson. So we'd love to see you guys show up, even if you want to just make the drive because you just, you want to go out and, hear good talks. It's going to be in the same format as the MySec stuff that's in Southfield. So if you're on the Metro Detroit area, make sure you check out the actual MySec in Southfield. It's wonderful. You can get information on missec.org. You can tweet at Chaotic Flaws. Wolfgang Gorlick, myself, will point you in all the right directions to get there. And another thing, I mentioned this in the beginning, my project is PoshSec. I don't know how many of you heard of it, but this was created because I needed a way to kind of help do the defensive stuff, but at the same time, I wanted to share something and give back to the community because I love this community, as flawed as we are. I do love this community, so check it out. You can get it on there. We're going to be focusing on like system hardening, forensics, and incident response here soon, probably in the next couple of weeks. So, anyone have any questions? Yes. Yes, actually, that was really cool. So I went out to their car. They had drive cloning stuff. So we walk out to their car. They opened up the trunk right next to the drive cloning thing, which, by the way, are like some of the coolest nerd stuff you'll ever see, are like racks of guns in the back of their car. So I'm like, man, they could totally hang out at like a HackerCon because guns and computers and stuff. It was awesome. One of the coolest things I've ever seen. I want their car. Pretty cool. So yes. Other questions? All right, let me put up my end slide, and you guys can boo if you want. All right, if you want to, there's my information. If you want to talk to me, if you don't, cool, whatever. Have a nice night. Thanks for coming to GrrCON. If you have anything to throw at Egg Drop, please do. Catch the pig.